moderating this session with two of my favorites, Sarbh and Gulshan Devaiah. You know, when people introduce both of you, I think the one word which is never in short supply is fine actor. You've heard it many times. What does this mean to you?
Hard to find actor.
No. Fine actor.
Hard to find.
You had to find initially. We're waiting for you.
You remember the last one?
Yeah,
We were on the same.
Yeah, you came 20 minutes late and we
I was
already
very
started.
late.
And there was a
I was
wedding
telling
the
the
night
crowd
before.
off because they gave you a huge round of applause when you entered 20 minutes late, and I was telling the crowd, you guys have paid for this, he's come late, how can you give him an ovation?
I was wildly hungover. There was a wedding the day before. I remember the first 20 seconds was just me chugging water.
Listen, I'm a journalist. I'm used to waiting for actors and for stars.
Fine actor. What does fine actor mean? Is that the question
What
that you're
does this
asking me?
mean to be? You guys call yourselves?
We don't
a
call
good-
ourselves.
You don't call yourselves a fine actor? No?
I think somebody who is very skilled, because I would tend to judge an actor or their performance on the skill level. So if somebody is if my evaluation of somebody is highly skilled, then I would put them in the category of fine actors.
And the skills for me can
Vary depending on the type of actor. Some people are extremely intuitive actors. They can respond to whatever the director says and respond
intuitively to the other person in the scene, and that is one kind of a fine actor. There's another kind of fine actor that is extremely prepared and comes with the little nuances and the plan for the scene basically built in and kind of sticks to that. There are other actors that are a bit of both. They come fully prepared.
Thanks. Thank you. They come fully prepared and they can change it if need be. I always feel it's better to come slightly prepared, because if you have a good foundation, quite prepared. If you have a good foundation,
Then you can actually flow with the changes. Whereas if you aren't sure where you're going or what your intention is, you can get a bit stuck in the moment when someone gives you a new impulse, or say the other actor isn't being able to give you what you thought you would be getting in the scene, or whatever it is. If you come with proper foundation, it's just a lot easier, which he definitely does.
So do you. We work together also.
We've worked together and he's always there, he's always very well prepared. He knows exactly what he wants to do as his character, and because he knows that, he can respond live, quickly and funnily to the other actor in the scene. Whereas if he wasn't as sure, he might be a bit flummoxed by new things coming at him. So I've always admired Gulshan for that specific quality. Not only is he good at picking accents, catching on to characters, but he just comes clearly with his homework done. You don't need to worry about the basics. You know that you'll have fun playing off him.
Thanks, man. My perspective is also an actor is a delivery system of feeling.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching something, I want a performance or something that they did or said or didn't do is supposed to evoke feeling. So, and if they're effectively able to make you feel, then that's also fine acting.
Okay, this also gives me a segue to my next question. Since you were talking about you both, it was very interesting listening to two actors, two fine actors, speak about each other and their process. They say you're as good as your co-actor, particularly in scenes where there are two people, you fend off each other's energy. What happens? You don't have to take names, but be honest. What happens when you have to do a scene with someone you feel is pulling it down, is probably not as skilled as you said?
We are also professionals. My way of looking at it is it happens sometimes that you work with actors who are not very experienced or non-actors. Many times we have to work with non-actors. So they just don't have a process or an approach to acting. You have to make do with what you have, and these are limitations, and sometimes limitations can be very irritating. It can test your patience, it can push you in directions that you don't want to go to, but you also have to remind yourself that it's a job. Being an actor is a job, and this is my profession. So under such circumstances, the most important thing that I want to focus on is getting the job done.
Yeah.
And then depending on the person, on the situation, the surroundings, you find ways to sort of efficiently and effectively do your job.
What are the hindrances?
I'm sorry?
What are the hindrances to this? To you trying to gather yourself?
Well, in mood, if I'm in a good mood, I'm more patient. If I'm not in a good mood, then I have to talk myself out of that bad mood. Or somebody else has to talk me out of it. Or hopefully I talk myself out of it. So far, I have not really, in my experience, I have not really lost it so badly that I'm not able to do my job. That has not happened, and I think it's some of it is also a conscious effort, because I do have a really bad temper. So I know that it can just be really not useful for everybody there if I just start throwing a temper tantrum. But also I take my professionalism quite seriously. So I'm also always trying to look for how to efficiently do this scene. Some actors are very responsive. Like in Badaido, I worked with Raj. We never even used to talk about the scene. It's just that we came prepared separately, and because we are both experienced and skilled actors, it would just flow. And then he did something, I would respond to that. I did something, he would respond to that. And that built a certain nuance in our relationship, without actually showing that they've had a physical relationship, our touch and the way we looked at each other and all that. It was just two actors really enjoying performing with each other and doing their job. Yeah.
So I feel when that happens, that's when it's fun. That's when it's play. Coming from the theatrical tradition, what is a play? A play, ideally you want to play with your co-actor. You want to see what that provokes in you and then respond and then have it returned, and then it all becomes really, really fun. Even if it's a horribly sad scene, it still is fun to do somewhere inside of you. When that isn't happening, it's just not as much fun. You still do it, you find a way to manage your co-actor. My rule, and I used to make this cardinal mistake when I was a bit younger, I would treat the first few takes almost like they were a rehearsal in a rehearsal room, which is I would do things to provoke what I thought was the right reaction out of this actor that may not be doing it in the moment, right? For whatever reason, it's not their day. Some days it's just not your day. So I would do more than I actually wanted to provoke a reaction that I thought was right, thinking that, oh, they'll get that, and then the next few takes will be fine. And sometimes there wasn't time for the next few takes. And then I looked ridiculous. I didn't look like what I wanted to look like because I was provoking a reaction. So I no longer do that anymore. Instead, I go to a different rule, which is you see what you need to react to, whether they do it or not. And what that eventually does, ideally, if it works out for you, is it makes the audience feel that they notice something, that they know the tiny shift in this person that maybe we didn't notice immediately, that was enough to make them have the reaction. Again, not as much fun because you're doing double work. You want to ideally just do your part and not have to see something and then react to this thing that you're imagining.
So just act and not direct. Initially you were also trying to direct.
I guess, yeah.
But it depends. Sometimes certain directors allow you that creativity also to sort of interact with actors and also receive. But in most cases, I think it's one actor shouldn't probably take the responsibility of directing another actor.
Yeah. A lot has been spoken about the process of acting, about how you delve into the character, what you go through. Are you guys fans of method acting? Is that something that you believe in? And I'm looking at Jim when I'm saying this because a clip of yours went viral where you said...
Yeah, but that clip is taken out of context, one.
Okay. So you'll put it in context here today?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I was narrating a story that David Mamet said in his book, True or False, which is about acting, and he even has a masterclass, and I was listening to that, and somewhere the two stories merged, and actually in the book he's talking about how he doesn't think that if all you're doing is one scene as a waitress, you need to spend 6 months, waiting tables. It's not necessary. If the scene is written really well, and you're wearing a waitress outfit, and you walk on the stage, that's enough. Then the reactions came like, is that what you have to say to Robert De Niro? And what do you think about Daniel Day-Lewis? It's like, I love these actors. I love these actors. So I'm not pitching out the method or method actors in general. I do think that it takes a very, very, very specific... My first film, I had to be method. So I have zero problem with method. Ram Madhvani created the circumstance around us having the opportunity to be method. We didn't talk to each other. The hijackers didn't talk to the air hostesses. The hijackers didn't talk to the crew, the passengers. We were kept separate completely. We just had to come on, do 45-minute to 1.5 hour takes. It was the most method project that I've ever done ever, and people seem to enjoy it, and I loved it. If the circumstances around that are that, I love it. If the circumstances around it aren't that, and let's say I'm shooting Padmavat over the course of a year and something, it's impossible to do it method. It's not possible. It's too long. There are too many gaps in between. I can't keep that guy in my head all the time. It's crazy. I need to take breaks from it and come on set. In addition to the fact, a lot of people here, I think a lot of sets run more on this friendly feeling. And I don't think everyone is okay with one person choosing to be method in the middle of all of that. I think people just want to be treated nicely. Also, the first so many roles that I did were villains. You don't want me acting method all the time on set. It's horrible to be around. It's no good for anybody. It's no good for me. It's no good for you guys. Unless the entire setup is designed that everybody knows that is what he will be doing, and that is what he will be doing, and that is what this person will be doing, and we shouldn't get in their way during that process. Otherwise, people just think you're rude. Which, you know. So, more of what I was saying in that video, and more of, I guess, what I wanted to talk about, which again, people have been like, oh, you want to take all responsibility away from yourself and put it on the writers. It's like, no, not that. I just love when something is really, really carefully written. I love it. I love when the punctuation is right. I love when it's so clear to me how the character thinks from just reading one scene. I don't need their description above of what they're like. I already know just how they act, how they react, and how they speak. I love that, because then it gives me a blueprint of the person that I want to eventually make. And I see that the amount of care put into each comma and each little phrase and each little sentence is something now I have to figure out how to fill with truth. And then my preparation becomes figuring out how to fill that with truth. I always think that you can't be much better than your lines. Some people disagree, and some people think that you can be much better than your lines, and that that's what being a performer is. I guess I've not come from that thought process. I've come from a place where the play has been written over the course of a year and a half or 2 years or 3 years by an extremely skilled playwright that is much smarter than me, that knows that this needs to trail off, and knows that this needs to be a cut-off, and knows that this means we both speak over each other. And there's a rhythm to how we can speak over each other where actually all information can be received. I come from that, so that's what I value.
Gulshan, I know you've lots to say.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a 3.5 hour podcast just on this subject. I love the method, except that it doesn't quite work for me. I sometimes even enviously look at people who can go full method, because it's also heavily romanticized, the whole idea of method acting. It just makes it a lot more glamorous to suffer that way. I tried it. I have not got the opportunity to go to acting school or drama school, so I had to learn things my own way by observation or reading books and things like that.
Same.
And during a play or I would try to do method, and sometimes it would work, but it just wasn't fun. It was not sustainable. It wasn't possible for me to be consistent. Like when I'm doing 25 shows back to back of a play. I'm saying play right now because that's where I did most of my training happened from doing plays. I just felt that it wasn't fun because after the third or fourth show, I'm like, I don't want to go through this whole process of isolating myself and being in that mind space and just, being angry sometimes. I was doing a play where I was playing Duryodhan, so he's really angry with everybody because they betrayed him. So I was just sitting in a corner and being angry. It was great for the first 2 shows, but after that, I just wanted to just have a good time with my co-actors and have fun while performing. So I realized pretty early on that it works for some people, but I cannot be consistent with it. I have another issue with method is that it gets in the way of everybody else.
Yeah.
I cannot have a process which gets in the way of you or him or everybody else who's working on set, the technicians, the DOP and all that. And it's a luxury, to be able to go full method when everybody's in on it and they allow you that space to sort of do, which is why Daniel Day-Lewis does such few films and which is why he retired, because you can't keep doing that. You pay a price, a heavy price for that. You have to be willing to pay that price and it's too much. Acting is fun for me. It's use of imagination. Perhaps because I went to design school, use of imagination is the process that I really enjoy. I like to construct how this individual that I'm playing, I like to imagine it and build it in my head first and then use my body to sort of communicate that. So this is my preferred process. But I don't want to unnecessarily take a shit on method acting. It really works for some people. And like I confessed myself a couple of times, I have really reaped the rewards of being method also. But it's just not fun. So
one takeaway is...
Sorry to add one more thing. I agree. I think every now and then it would be grand. I think if there was a project that came and said, we need you to live in a cave for a month, okay? And then after that month, and you're going to learn your lines during that time, and you're not going to meet anybody, and after that month, you're going to come on set and you're going to do this, and everybody knows, and you don't have to do anything different than what you want to do, than what your character feels like doing. Oh, great. But I'm doing method, he doesn't know.
I still couldn't do it. I was like, no. Let me think of something. If you don't like it, then I'll
every now and then. I mean, I'm doing method, he doesn't know, he comes, he says good morning in the morning, I'm like, go fuck yourself. It doesn't feel nice. People don't like it.
No, it's not. It doesn't create a conducive environment to be creative.
So one takeaway is you definitely don't want to be on a set where somebody's following that process because it's...
Well, it's okay if it's getting in my way. It's possible for some people. Like, I remember chatting with Supriya Pathak when we were working. And Pankaj Kapoor is notoriously a method actor. But I think he is mindful of the fact that it gets in the way of people, so he completely isolates himself. That's his way of, like, I'm not going to talk to anybody, I'm just going to be there. When my shot is there, you just call me,
so
I'll come
being respectful to everyone else in their process.
Perhaps that's a good way, but I couldn't do that either because, like, I'm not like, sometimes you meet such interesting people who you admire, from whom you can learn so much. You meet new people. I want to interact with them and then, have the joy of working with them. So I find it extremely, maybe one day I'm finding it really difficult to sort of be emotionally there, so I might isolate myself. But the whole project, I don't think it's a thing that really appeals to me that much.
Super. So you both spoke about your love for theatre, and I want to know how important is stagecraft when you're in front of the camera. How much does that help you? How much does that educate you for this craft?
Blocking, catching light, having awareness of your surroundings, and also not being easily distracted by your surroundings. That's something that I think, coming with the eye line problems, I don't have that. I do get distracted because I'm a human. So, but I don't have this problem because I also know that sometimes people are moving behind the camera because they have a job to do, they're moving something, they're holding something, they're operating the trolley and things like that. So being on stage, you are mindful of the audience, and sometimes, phone ringing and somebody's chatting and all that. You get a little used to sort of blocking these things out, but technically also it helps you hit your mark, take light, be aware of where the camera is.
And get through till the end of the scene.
Get through to the end of the scene.
Even if you mess up, even if something goes off, just get through to the end. You don't even know. That mistake may be gold.
How to stand, sometimes what to do with your hands. That's the first thing, like, go and stand on stage. And then most people don't know what to do, where to put their hands.
Yeah. So, when people... I want you to speak about if acting is medium agnostic, or does it change in definition a little depending on the medium? Is stage acting different when, from facing the camera? Is TV different from films?
I think that it's a question of project to project, and it's a question of frame. So, for example, just now my frame for most people over here is this entire stage. I know the light, it's not really focused on us. The whole stage is more or less evenly white space lit.
Yeah.
So if I choose to, of course, everybody will be reframing for this particular chat and will probably be cutting most of their attention from somewhere like here till about somewhere like here, because that's kind of where they will reframe now to make sure to. So I know that it's mostly here. But if I choose to go there, I can, because I'll be lit and you all can possibly follow my frame all the way over there. However, if it's an intense close-up this much and I'm doing as much with my body as I just did given the frame, it makes zero sense. It makes no sense. So now my frame is this much. And within that frame, how do I want to draw attention, attract attention, change attention? And of course, it all has to do with how the light is hitting you, etc., etc. I know a lot of people who make the transition from theater to films. The reaction can sometimes be, it's too much, which is, I guess, the name of this panel discussion is overacting. And
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? I don't think that there is such a thing as too much in either medium. It's just about how you can fill it and just about whether the project allows for it or not. I remember that there have been certain projects where if I try to do what I consider my totally good naturalistic, acting, and I'm, taking pauses in between lines and I'm stuttering or stumbling over a thought or whatever, it just won't look good, because that's not the nature of this particular project. The nature of this particular project is slightly pitched, slightly classical, and you kind of have to find what you want to do within that nature of the project. And if you fight against it, actually you just come across looking not quite right, even though you're doing what you would consider very good naturalistic, perfect acting. So I think the demands of this stage versus film versus series versus short films, there's no blanket rule. It depends on the project. Some of the films that I love. The acting is absurd. It's so pitched. It's so highly pitched. I just watched The Big Lebowski again recently. I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman playing the guy's assistant is pitching his performance like somewhere here. It's ridiculous. But he feels it. He knows how to make it seem like a real guy being this over the top. And so you have zero problem. You just enjoy it. Whereas that in a film where everybody is doing, very, very serious acting would stick out like a sore thumb, and would it work? And I imagine Philip Seymour Hoffman knows when to do what.
It's actually really simple. There is a rule of thumb. From my perspective, there is a rule of thumb. It's called aesthetics. You have to understand in what aesthetic you are performing, the sensibilities of work, because we are actors. So the storytellers, what is the aesthetic of the storyteller? What are the sensibilities through which they are conveying this story? Of course, there are technicalities, like Jim said, like when you're on stage, there are no close-up frames, there's a whole frame. And we have to generally project our voice. We have to speak loudly. Even the stage whisper is also much louder than an actual whisper. If you don't do that, people can't hear you. So theatre in its purest form is performed live without any sound system. So you project your voice. So it is going to be pitched up. The volume is going to be slightly more amped up, and so are the gesticulations and mannerisms are going to be little. The craft is the same. The skill set is the same. You just adapt it to the aesthetics. So television, certain shows, a soap opera or like a daily soap may have a certain aesthetic. So as an actor, you have to decide whether you want to serve that sensibility or not. That's a career choice. But if you are in it, then you have to serve, that's a career choice. If you are in that, then you have to, as he was saying, you have to act in a way that suits that aesthetic. You can't do subtle stuff where everybody else is doing a sitcom with a laughter track. You have to understand what is the aesthetics, what are the sensibilities of the director, the storytellers, and you have to try your best to serve that. But the skill sets are the same. There is absolutely no difference from medium to medium.
I agree.
Great to finally get them to agree. But thank you guys. Thank you